Hello and welcome to episode 332 of the Total Saints podcast, your home for all things Southampton Football Club. Before we start, as always, a huge thank you to our TSP Patreon community because we couldn't make the show each week without your loyal support. Coming up this week on the podcast, there have been some memorable South Coast derbies over the years. Today's wasn't one of them. There's literally nothing to talk about, really, after the 0-0 draw at Pompey. But we'll try and find something. The season really kicks on from now, right? Hull City away at the weekend. We're going to preview that game for you. And did you spot us on the big screen at St Mary's? I'll tell you more about that later as well. My name is Martin Stark, and joining me this week, we've got the full house. Steve Grant is the owner of Saints Web. Glenda LaCour is writer of the blog League One -10. And Alfie House is senior Southampton reporter at the Daily Echo. So we waited 13 years for a South Coast derby in the league. Was it worth the wait? No, it wasn't. A complete waste of everybody's Sunday lunchtime. But there's a few things for us to pick over. A couple of talking points, I think. Alfie, I'm going to start with you. We got the four at the back that we'd been expecting, but maybe a week sooner than we thought.
I guess maybe. I suppose it was a call to put Tom Fellows straight into the starting lineup. But to be fair, I thought he did quite well. So, yeah, I was in two minds. I didn't really know if he would make the change or not. But I think he's spoken all summer about the fact that he wants to play four at the back, and he was waiting for the players to do it. And he's got the players in the door now, so he did it. So I don't think that's a sort of a massive surprise. I mean, you mentioned we waited sort of 13 years for a South Coast derby at home. I went into town today about 8 o'clock in the morning, just sort of a wander around to soak up the atmosphere, and it was interesting. The police sort of barricades everywhere, stopping us and asking for us ID. Are you allowed to walk through here? Are you not? And it felt like this is a proper occasion. And I think Mark Dennis, who came over to me actually before the game started today and said hello, and he said that he's a massive fan of the podcast. Hopefully he's listening now, and he remembered that Glenn obviously showed a bit of disdain for his singing before the match a couple of weeks ago, but he did it again.
Hey, look, I'm a Mark Dennis fan, but I'm also a music fan. And the two don't mix. Sorry, Mark.
I don't know what they're paying Mark Dennis, but he earns his money. He got the fans going. It was a great sort of start to the game. Good atmosphere. Both sets of fans were right up for it. But unfortunately, the first half it is absolutely dreadful. I have to be totally frank. And you said it's a waste of our afternoon, Martin. I mean, Will Steele himself said we wasted everybody's time in the first half, and he's totally right. They did. I mean, we recount the big moments. They obviously hit the bar in the first 8 minutes. Which again came from a bit of a lack of composure from Taylor Harwood-Bellis. Not necessarily that Taylor was a problem during the game, but you could see the nerves were there. And there's one sort of ball going straight into the throat of Gavin Bazunu that he decides to swat away down the middle, and then it falls to Andy Dozzell, who smacks the bar. And that's the closest any team went. You had the Pompey goalkeeper going off injured. They bring on somebody who has never played at a proper level. He's been a backup in League One. He started in League Two a couple of years ago for a few games, and we didn't have a shot at him for the rest of the game because why would you? Why would you test him? And I think even the towards the end of the half, it was still Pompey on top. Colby Bishop had a chance that he put wide. Archer maybe could have done a bit more with one of the chances he had, but the half time, Pompey are thinking we've got a chance winning this because Saints are not at it at all. That does change after the break. To be fair, I think Saints did get better. I think there's a moment quite early on where Archer takes the ball around the goalkeeper and he puts a good ball into the box. There's nobody there to convert it. Where's the support? But even that's as close as Saints really came. Tom Fellows, who I thought looked pretty decent on the first start, had a shot blocked. Taylor Harwood-Bellis headed over with the last chance from a corner. But other than that, Saints had sort of 70% possession in the second half. And what did they do with it? Clearly not enough. And one of the other things that Will Steele said was that they were playing catch-up in the second half because of that first half, because of how bad it was. And I hear what he's saying, but it's not catch up because it's still 0-0 and one moment wins the game. So I don't know what they think they're catching up to. One moment wins the game, one moment of quality.
Yeah,
but all day they didn't produce it.
I think the catch up is the fact that we didn't test Pompey out at all. So they weren't expending any energy keeping us at bay. So
and yet they did still look knackered in the second half.
Yeah, but they found it easier. Yeah, they found it easier to get through that second half, I think, because they didn't have to expend any energy trying to contain us in the first half. I think that's kind of what he's getting at. But yeah, it took me a while to think of what he actually meant there as well. I couldn't find a justification for saying that. It took a while.
Do you think it was the occasion then, Glenn, just got the better of them? Or was it just a case of not being good enough in that first half? Because as Alfie says, the atmosphere in town and the atmosphere before the game, everything was brilliant until about 12 o'clock. And then the first 8 or 9 minutes, I don't think we really got the ball, did we?
Well, I think I have to give credit to John Mousinho and Pompey for the way what you can't do in a derby when you're the away team is concede an early goal and the home team make a fast start. Because if the home team make a fast start and score, then you're really up against it, because obviously the crowd gets up. And the way they calmed it down was by wasting time from the first whistle. So the ball goes out for a throw in. No one goes to get it. I don't know what the ball boys are doing, but no one goes to get it. Will still eventually comes out of the technical area to go and get it. So I think the first 5 minutes, I think the ball was in play for one, if that. And especially in the Championship, the referees aren't going to do anything at all about it. So I thought Pompey's game plan to quieten us down at the start and just take any sting out of any fast, because we obviously wanted to have a fast start, and I think that's what Will Steele was getting annoyed about with getting the ball back in play and all that sort of stuff. So, but the first 10 minutes, nothing happened. Very, very fragmented. But what I can't understand about that first half is that, Will Steele is complaining that, we wasted everybody's time, but it's in his power, surely, to get everybody up the pitch a bit. And not what was he scared of? What were we, Downs and Charles were parked in front of the central defenders, and we weren't pressing Pompey's goalkeeper, either of them. And the second one who came on couldn't kick a ball to save his life, but we weren't pressing him. We weren't pressing the central defenders, and we were just allowing them to play, kind of get to halfway, and then they could send a ball up towards Bishop, and they were getting the ball out to Murphy, who is their best attacking player. I don't know what we were trying to achieve by playing so deep. We weren't doing anything coming forward, because they kept players up and pressed us in our half. And so we were kind of going across the back four, and then someone was booting it long up to Cameron Archer, which is a waste of time, as we all know. So I don't know what the hell was going on. I mean, Will Steele's kind of implying that the players didn't carry out instructions, but it's in his power to change what they were doing. There was kind of no progression through midfield. I went on at the start of the season about Downs and Charles and how I thought they'd dominate games, but they just haven't. They just haven't as yet. There's not enough progression through midfield. Their job should be to get the ball to Azaz, get the ball to the wide players, to feed Cameron Archer. That should be the plan. But Downs and Charles, I thought the pair of them in possession were poor. They did some good stuff out of possession, winning the ball back and stuff like that, but going forward, there was nothing there. It was too slow. It was, there wasn't enough progression to get the ball to the strikers. Anyone who, as Will Steele has said, that first half was a waste of time, and I think that did make it easier for Pompey to manage the second half. But I will say credit to Mousinho for the way he set them up. They had a plan to get the ball to Murphy and give Roslev a lot of problems. And to be fair, I think Roslev had a tough game out there, but he was marking their best player, and I thought he stuck to it reasonably well in the second half, particularly. But yeah, I thought in the battle of the managers, I think they definitely won.
As frustrating as it was, Steve, neither side really deserved to win, did they? So at the end of the day, it is a fair result, but it was just a really frustrating afternoon.
Yeah, I mean, neither side has had a meaningful save to make. Neither keeper. Sorry. No. Well, in fact, all three keepers. So it's really frustrating that, because I mean, what we've spoken about in some of the other games this season is the fact that our final ball has generally been pretty good, and we've just been really bad at finishing. And actually today we got into some decent positions in wide areas, and the final ball was crap. Balls into the box weren't good enough, and we had 7 corners, and I think one of them cleared the first man. And it was just one of those days where none of Ryan Manning's set piece deliveries were any good, really, up until that free kick with more or less sort of in the last minute of injury time. So that was disappointing. given that that's been one part of our game we've probably been quite reasonably satisfied with this season. Final ball has generally been good, and people have been getting into position, but just missing the chances. And unfortunately, this time we didn't really create the chances. But I guess, one sort of slither of positivity to come out with it is a clean sheet, which not many of us would have predicted, given our sort of defensive calamities that, so far this season, and kind of stretching back a couple of years or so, really. So I think, like, defensively, we looked okay for the most part. Roersleff was good defensively, but every time he was on the ball, he looked absolutely terrified. He just seems like a guy who's. This is one thing that we were kind of warned by some Brentford fans, is that he's just a guy that just looks like he's lost all confidence in his own ability to play sort of passing football. Because there were a couple of occasions in that first half where, towards the back end of the first half, when obviously the keeper had got injured and we'd had a chance to kind of have a little bit of a chat and sort a few things out, and Shay Charles was able to kind of get a little bit of space in that midfield between the lines, which was something that neither he nor Downs managed to do in the first half an hour or so, because they were more or less hiding behind, like Downs was hidden behind Colby Bishop every time Stevens had the ball at his feet, so there was no pass ever available there, and Charles was generally being marked by at least one Pompey midfielder, if not two or three. But on this one, he managed to get a little bit of space. And there was relatively simple ball between two Pompey defenders, two Pompey players who were probably 7 or 8 yards apart. So it's not that risky a pass. And yet he still wouldn't take that risk. He was that sort of lacking in self-belief that he turned it round and we recycled it and went back to Harwood-Bellis and kind of went across the back four again. So I think that was frustrating that we weren't able to build attacks with our fullbacks, because those fullbacks, both Manning and Roersleff, are relatively attack-minded players. Manning kind of had a bit of a struggle in the first half, I thought, but second half was much better. But we just didn't get not enough bodies in the box, not enough good deliveries, unfortunately. I don't know whether the conditions played a part. It felt like a really swirling wind, although that may just be the Pompey sub-keeper not being able to kick properly. But everything seemed to just hang in the air.
I hadn't quite realised how bad he was, I don't think, until after the game, that he was second choice at Barnsley, wasn't it? I think Alfie pointed that out. I hadn't realised that. That annoyed me even more after the game, that we hadn't really tested.
Well, even Gavin Bazunu pointed this out in the post-match. He said, for a sub-keeper who's barely played for 18 months, we should have been taking some shots from distance and trying them out. I'm not saying that you want everybody just flying in pot shots from 30 yards, because chances of actually scoring are still, even against a keeper of his unknown ability, you're still kind of odds against. But at least give him something to think about, that you might take that shot. We had those 2 breaks, didn't we, in the second half, where Downs and Azaz got into the D on the edge of the area, and then just didn't play the release pass to the left where Fraser was waiting. And you'd have fancied the wee man to at least have hit the target from those if he'd received the ball. So that was annoying. I thought Fraser had a decent game. It was one of those just nothing game, really, and the subs probably actually disrupted our flow a little bit. I thought we were sort of in the ascendancy for a good sort of 20 minutes or so, and then we make the triple sub. Fair credit where it's due to whoever's in charge of the big screen, who mistakenly said we were bringing Joe Aribo on.
I missed that.
But I think the subs kind of probably didn't actually help. It didn't do anything wrong per se, but I think the rhythm that the starting players in those positions have built up, because Fellows, I thought, had a relatively quiet first half, but was a lot more involved in the second. And then you go and take both him and Fraser off, who probably, I mean, as I say, Fraser probably our best outfield player, I think. And yeah, obviously Archer was making a certain kind of run. Actually, Adam Armstrong coming on was quite good. I thought his
having a go, didn't he? He had a go.
His movement was sharp, and it was just different movement as well, which suddenly caused them a little bit of a panic, because it just seemed like they were really slow at the back. We were trying to play that sort of pass, that whipped pass in behind the centre back, and unfortunately they defended those quite well in the end. I think there was one that got through, but Armstrong didn't quite have enough support or the angle to kind of work anything with it. But yeah, just slightly underwhelming overall, I think. And problem you've got is that there's a big element of our fan base whose kind of mood in terms of the manager and the club in general entirely revolves around how we do against that lot. Like I've seen people on social media saying, "I'll get that ginger prick out now already," and it's just like this is ridiculous. But yeah, it's also from the sort of people that I would fully expect that sort of nonsense from as well. So I mean, it's also one of those things you just like roll your eyes. Oh, God, get over yourselves.
Yeah. There's kind of two ways of looking at this game. You can look at it in isolation and say this was terrible, which it was, or you can look at it from a longer term, the whole season point of view, and then a few sort of caveats come into play, don't they? The international break, the change of players, and all the other stuff. And if we'd been playing anybody else, it would have been another one of those. Okay, it'll come. But because it's them, and we obviously wanted to win it, it's very disappointing, and for some it's hard to look past that. But we've got to try and do that. Otherwise, it eats you up somewhat, doesn't it?
I think there is something weird going on with the seeming disconnect between Will Steele and what his players are actually doing and what he says he wants them to do. Yeah. Because I mean, look, you talk about the sort of balls into the box and things like that. I mean, they attempted 27 crosses today. This is the third most for Saints in games this season. We know that's what Will Steele's team's all about. People ask, what's Will Steele's identity? What does he do? They cross the ball into the box. And, for reference, for the rest of the league, I think the highest average other than Saints is like 27.8 per game. So the Saints put 27 in the box today. Archer specifically had 6 aerial duels, I think one of the most of any players. Now, I thought Archer actually he worked hard today with some good movement. There was some decent moments, but I don't want him in 6 aerial duels a game, whether that's in the box or in the middle of the park. Now, I sort of wrestle with it and think, okay, well, maybe they're not actually worried about Archer losing the first ball. Maybe it's all about winning the second ball. But then Will Steele says after the game that, they don't want that to be happening. They don't want Archer to be getting into those aerial situations against 2 6'4" centre-backs. So why then? Why is he? Why is he getting into it continuously? Because I feel like that's happened in other games as well. So, he still says he wants his players to play it through the lines on the floor to Cameron Archer. So why aren't they? I just can't work out what's going on there. So there's things that will change, hopefully, in time.
Do you think Cameron Archer is still the best we've got at the moment, Alfie? I mean, he said he didn't want a striker, didn't he? He was quite adamant after the transfer window closed when he did his interviews this week. He said he didn't want a striker. He was kind of happy with who we had. But I just wonder whether Ross Stewart comes in at the weekend, whether it's time for him to have a bit of a run. Although he came on today for 15 minutes, and I don't think he won a header either. So
no, Ross Stewart's obviously come on in a lot of games and hasn't really done anything either, and that's because it's difficult to come into a game and be given sort of 10-minute spells and things like this. So it's not a criticism of Ross, but Will Steele says he doesn't want a striker because he been told he wasn't going to get one. So that's pretty clear. But Archer scored 2 goals in back-to-back games. We're not blessed with goals at the moment, and I think Archer is still the best they've got. In terms of the way he runs in behind, he's got a natural finish on him, but it's not his game. He doesn't hold the ball up that way. He doesn't. He can't beat these 6'4" players in the middle of the park. And then, we're bringing in Tom Fellows as the marquee signing because, the one thing he does is run down the wing and cross. And he did that today with the right foot a couple of times and cutting in with his left foot into the back post as well. But you've got Ryan Fraser and Cameron Archer there. So you might as well not bother crossing because none of them can win the ball in the box. So I just don't understand. I don't quite get what's going to happen right now, what's going to change. But yeah, I guess we'll find out. Finn Azaz does add a bit of that sort of height. He is like 6'1", 6'2". So maybe
today,
he
though,
plays.
was he?
No,
Is he good in
invisible
the air?
today. That's the question, isn't it? You know, Damien Downs is tall, but is he good in the air? Not really, based on what we've seen. So yeah, it's a weird one. There's a little bit of disconnect between what Wilster wants to do and what we're seeing at the moment. But yeah, I think anyone who's saying that managers need to change and stuff is ridiculous. We need to stop going through that every 6 weeks.
Did you see enough in the second half, though, Glenn? Do you think there is some signs there of what he's trying to do?
Not really, to be honest. I mean, you say in the second half is better than the first. It's a pretty low bar, isn't it? I don't think we really did enough to, at any level, warrant saying we deserve to win that game. I don't really think they did either. I thought 0-0 was the result that the game deserved because of how bad it was. I mean, one shot on target each. I've had to watch the highlights to find what our one was because I couldn't remember it. And
it was that little flick from Cameron Archer.
It was a little flick from Archer that was never going to go in anyway. And theirs was a P-roller from 40 yards. Obviously, they had the one at the bar that was pretty close. But no, I don't think we did enough. We were only ever going to score from a set piece. And as Steve has already covered, that the set pieces today were crap as well. So there wasn't a lot going on to suggest that anything is going in the right.
It's the right direction. Steve, a couple of people making their debuts as well today. Obviously, Tom Fellows we mentioned. Finn Azaz, we saw a little bit of him in the Watford game, making his start. What were your impressions on the new guys that have come in?
First half, they were quiet. Along with pretty much everybody else,
Everyone.
in fairness. Fellows was kind of... the only handful of sort of things that did happen in an attacking sense largely came down Fellows' side. Yeah. So he obviously got himself into some decent positions in behind Ogilvy, who was their left back in the first half. And obviously, what the hell their keeper is doing when he charges out for that one where him and Ogilvy end up getting clattered between each other. And Fellows has kind of caused that in a sense by putting the pressure on. I don't think there's... has Mousinho kind of claimed that Fellows has shoved him there? I don't think he has. From what I've seen, I've not.
I don't think he's shoved him intentionally, but there are two hands on the back. I do think it's a foul, personally.
Maybe so, but it's not one of those ones where it's deliberately shoved into the path of the keeper flying through the air. That he seems to kind of be getting his knickers in a twist for. But yeah, he was kind of involved more than most people, but still on the periphery for the most part. And part of that is because Roerslev wasn't giving him the ball. Yeah. Every time Roerslev got the ball, it was recycled back to Harwood-Bellis.
There was a lot of that going on, wasn't
Stevens,
there?
And it was frustrating. And thing is, I kind of get it after the first 10, 15 minutes where Pompey have been kind of swarming all over us a little bit and we've been kind of clearing the ball in a panic and the ball's then just coming back at us. Yeah. Actually, that sort of recycling of possession and just getting a feel for the ball and kind of slowing the tempo down a little bit just to make sure we're in the game and have got our heads right. I didn't really have too much of a problem with. The issue was that we were then unable to kind of pick the level up any further than that in the first half, really. Apart from those we had those two little bits of interchange where we put a break on and got ourselves into decent positions. Obviously, one of those ended with that Cam Archer, it was an Azaz scuff and then Archer's flick. And it's one of those. I think if Archer had his day again, he might actually have tried to control that rather than just trying to divert it. Because if he'd been able to take a touch, then he's basically got an open goal. Yeah. But he's kind of stretching for it. It's behind him, so I've got no issue that he tried to flick it. But if he'd had a little bit more awareness of how much space he had, then he might have yeah, he might have done something differently there.
I agree with you, Steve. I didn't actually realise until I saw the highlights angle of the chance of what a decent chance it actually was. And I felt the same for the Colby Bishop one as well, for obviously the Pompey one a couple of minutes later.
He shinned it, didn't he, Bishop?
Yeah, I think he should have scored really, or should have tested.
But actually, he also had a shout from whoever it was behind him, who actually was in a much better position. But I mean, you would always expect your number 9 to be trying to score when you're 8 yards out. But yeah, we certainly got away with that one, that's for sure.
And Yander coming on off the bench, I thought looked all right for a bit. Alfie, because Shay Charles had a good game. Flynn Downs less so. Just something about those two. It's just not clicking at the moment, and I can't quite put my finger on what isn't working there. But maybe they're just too deep. It's something's not quite right on paper. They should be head and shoulders above everybody else, but just too many games now. It's just not really clicked for some reason.
Yeah, I think Flynn Downs is one where I'm fairly confident that at some point this season it's going to click for him again, because he's been proven this level a couple of times. But maybe missing that game before the international break for illness is not ideal for him, and a bit of rhythm lost, stuff like that. But yeah, it's a worry. And Glenn made the point in sort of his opening monologue about the progression up the pitch. And like in a game today where Finn Azaz was largely anonymous, I think Finn's a really good player. His numbers are brilliant in the Championship, but Middlesbrough fans did say that he can go missing in games, and if he does, you need someone else to step up. And obviously between Shay Charles and Flynn Downs, he didn't do that going forward today. So there's a place there to be won for Kasper Yander. I think I said in maybe my predicted team or something else that I think that, of all the sort of signings that are pushing their way in, he's, I don't see Leo Cienza starting a game next weekend, for example. But if Kasper Yander forces his way into the team, it wouldn't surprise me. But I didn't get a sort of a real look at him. I didn't see him do too much. I mean, there was one where a foul was given against him for a dive by Murphy, a blatant dive, which was classic. And got booked. I think that was actually what...
The ref had an extraordinary 10, 15 minutes towards the back end of that second half, didn't he? I mean, Jesus Christ.
I mean, even my dad texted me saying the guy in black has no idea what he's doing, and like he's obviously he's a neutral, he's complete neutral in the situation.
It just felt like he was trying to sort of keep it all. He was playing for a 0-0.
I think he knew exactly what he was doing.
Yeah,
he didn't want it to be a blood and thunder game, and so the way you
having to do some work.
Yeah, the way you do that as a referee is to give fouls every single time there's any sort of contact. And
in the first half, he was giving everything but booking nobody. So it was just stopping a play, but no one got booked. Stopping a play, nobody gets booked. Which, as you said,
I will say that he allowed. I always like it when referees allow advantages and then go back and book a player. He did that a couple of times, so he wasn't horrendous, but I think he was definitely trying to take the sting out of the game, which I think suited Pompey more than it suited us. But I don't really want to talk about, and I've just done it. I don't really want to talk about the referee too much because that comes under the bracket of excuses. And there's no real excuse for, whatever situation or whatever scenario was presented to us by that game. We should have been good enough to rise above it and certainly do more than we did. If we'd had a go and had 25 shots and the keeper had saved everything, then you say, okay, that's fair enough. That's a 0-0. The goalie's had a worldie, fair enough. But to play like we did, regardless of the scenarios that presented themselves, was just crap. And you can't use that as an excuse.
I'm going to ask you for Player of the Week. Obviously, the fans springs to mind. Maybe the tifo that they unveiled. Perhaps Shay Charles. It is slim pickings this week for sure. Steve, anybody? Any positives?
I mean, I thought defensively we were pretty sound. The two centre backs kept Colby Bishop pretty quiet. I mean, a guy that big is always going to win his fair share of balls in the air, but Harwood-Bellis and Stevens kept him relatively quiet. He wasn't able to kind of back in and bring the ball down and bring others into play. It was a case of if he wins it, then the ball's bouncing off of him somewhere and ending up. I mean, it could be anywhere. It's then right. Who's going to win the second ball? And actually, more often than not, we won those second balls off of Bishop, which is actually probably quite a rare thing for us defensively in the last few years. So yeah, that was relatively impressive. I thought Bazunu had a decent game from a distribution perspective, although he had that one utterly mental moment in the middle of the second half where he kind of went to bowl it out and then decided against it, threw it up in the air and realised, oh crap, I can't pick this up again now.
Can he not touch it again? Because surely is that not just like throwing it up and then?
No, you can't pick that up again.
Can't pick it up again.
I didn't know that.
So yeah, I mean, he ended up trying to pass it out wide, but I think probably better option would have been just hoof it into the sky. But yeah, got away with that one. But I thought defensively we were okay for the most part. Given how ropey we've looked against pretty much everybody else this season, I think we second half especially we were relatively comfortable in that department. So I think, yeah, the two centre backs, both Harwood-Bellis and Stevens, I think credit for the clean sheet there. I think.
I guess he's right, Alfie. You can't look past the first clean sheet of the season. That is a positive. Yeah, we can all sort of take that forward.
Yeah, we're gonna have to, aren't we? We're not gonna much else. So,
Any standout performance for you?
I think if we're putting both the centre halves down, which I would agree with, I will go for Ryan Fraser as my pick. I think it'd be a popular one as well. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think the quality of some of his deliveries wasn't there today, and I think particularly with the corners. Obviously, you mentioned Ryan Manning, but I'm pretty sure Ryan Fraser took a few of them as well, and none of them did anything either. So yeah, the quality maybe wasn't there, but what he did do was he kept going for the entire game, worked hard. One of the few players that managed to sort of get in behind and actually get a ball across the box. So yeah, Ryan Fraser for me.
Glenn, any standout performers?
Oh, great! I get to go last. With
you can just agree and go, well, yeah, that's
shambles. No, I agree.
There's no one else, is there? Really? We covered it already.
It has to be the centre halves. There isn't really anyone else. Adam Armstrong was the only time I felt like energised the whole game when he come on and but
you feeling okay?
It was only 2 or 3. Well, no, I thought he was okay. He came on and he added some energy.
Did something?
That's what you got to do as a substitute. I mean, that's that's the minimum requirement, isn't it? To add some energy, and he did that, and he probably caused them more problems in that sort of 5 minutes when he first came on. And he's done that in a couple of games now. Actually, he did it at Watford as well. He's come on and added something. I think Armstrong at 100% late in a game certainly does add something. But I think you could argue that maybe they should have brought him on slightly earlier. I mean, they obviously brought him on to play off of Ross Stewart, but Armstrong ended up doing it on his own because Ross Stewart didn't touch the ball. And that seems to be a thing with our centre forwards, with both Stewart and Downs. They seem to get on the pitch and they don't touch the ball. And again, this feeds back into this disconnect thing that Alfie's talking about. What are we doing? What's the plan to get the ball to the strikers? Because I mean, when Stewart came on the pitch, we stopped crossing the ball. And I don't get it. We did it with Tall Paul on occasions last year as well. It's just mad. You bring on a guy to try and threaten, and then stop putting the ball in the areas where you've been putting it for Cameron Archer. It's mad. I don't get what they're trying to achieve. I'm sure there's something clever in the modern football playbook that I'm understanding. But yeah, basics for me. So yeah, look, long waffly answer, but Adam Armstrong for his 5 minutes.
Anything else on Pompey before we move on? There was a message that I saw a tweet today about the only person that actually managed to make a run and get into space was the pitch invader.
How pointless
not being
was
funny,
that?
But he just didn't go anywhere. Like, he didn't even get to halfway. It's
you can't, can you?
To be fair, he come a long way from the Northern men, so I mean, halfway was a reasonable shout.
Have we seen? But I mean, Alfie, you'll have seen this because it's in the Echo. But someone in the away end was arrested for impersonating a steward.
Yeah.
Which I found absolutely.
There's only been 2 arrests, which is obviously a brilliant achievement. One of those was the person who had thrown an object onto the pitch. So when Murphy got thrown,
that was really early on, wasn't it?
That was it. Allegedly, that was also the report that the police have given is that was the same person who then ran onto the pitch. So as they were being apprehended,
so he knew he was done, and
so presumably they come to get him later on, and he thought, "Well, I'll run out." So fair enough, whatever. I mean, it's stupid. He'll now get a football banning order. So good luck to him.
He looked to me like he sobered up when he'd run about 20 yards. And it was just like, what have I done here?
But the second arrest was a away fan impersonating a steward to get into the game, which I mean I've never heard of. Incredible.
Sorry, because just one more thing. Because my Wi-Fi dropped out, you might have covered this, but have you talked about the goalkeeper getting injured, that incident? Because Messineo,
was it a shove or
Messinio's,
not?
Messinio's complaining about it and just saying, fellow shoved him into him, and it was weird because I think there was the slightest touch from Fellows on Ogilvie, the left back, but I don't think Ogilvie for a second realised that his goalkeeper was away from home and there. And it looked to me, having watched it back, it looked to me like Ogilvie waits for the touch from Fellows. It's a very slight touch, and then he almost dives, and he ends up diving into the goal.
Yeah, he does dive.
He dives into the goalkeeper. So it's it's a really weird one, and it's always going to get given as a push. But I don't think Fellows can really be blamed for the Pompey left back.
I think it's fine to give a free kick, but I agree with you. Messinio's comments after are just bang out of order because you're quite right. He literally dives into the goalkeeper.
Yeah. It's strange, but there you go.
But there's a couple of weird comments from Messinio. Did you see? Sorry, Martin. Did you see the handshake at full time?
Was it a bit Tuchel and Conte?
It is a little bit. Had a little bit of that vibe about it. Yeah.
Lovely.
Will Steele was obviously asked about it, and I think he just said, I asked him about it. He just said, I don't know what that was about. It was really weird. But yeah, it's just football. I'm not worried about it. But then Messinio was asked about it himself, and he said, oh yeah, you don't want in a game like this, you don't want the two managers to be friends, do you? It's like, okay, you're just sort of playing for the gallery here a little bit, aren't you? Like, why are you trying to act the big man? Like, just take the point and go home.
He knows it. He knows his audience, doesn't he? He's not stupid.
Yeah, that's exactly. Well, yeah. So I thought that was a bit weird, but
he had a good day. Why ruin it? I also thought it was strange that the sub keeper that came on looked exactly the same as the one.
That was.
It was like, what's he done? They just it's like that Simpsons gif because he just turn around and come back on. Where do they get him from?
The only Simpsons gif that game reminded me of was Sideshow Bob stepping on all the rakes.
We'll dig that out. Right. You might have also spotted TSP around St Mary's this afternoon because we are officially sponsoring two players this season. It's Jack Stevens in the men's team and Atlanta Primus in the women's team. Now, it was a random draw on Wednesday, Steve. You and Alfie went along. So how did we end up with both the captains? It sounds
we
to me...
We didn't just go along. We drew it. We drew the captain.
It sounds to me like it heated balls. This is. Was there something dodgy going on?
Yeah, there were some hot balls, I think. No. We Steve drew Jack Stevens. I drew Atlanta Primus, and I think at the time you're thinking you want a goal scorer, don't you? You want a Cameron Archer or an Adam Armstrong. But when you get both captains, I think that's a decent effort.
Yeah, if we don't have a goal scorer at the club, then we might as well go for the captains. And it was nice to see his name when his name came up on the team sheet. So you want someone that's going to be starting every week, really, don't you? Because then the logo comes up, which was quite good. I did like the picture of you guys with Franny Benali. You look like a couple of really shifty agents picturing holding up the shirt. But so that's cool. It's nice that we can continue to build the relationship with the club as well, and hopefully we'll get the logo on the screen a little bit more. Also, the TIFO. I know we mentioned it kind of briefly earlier on today. We're on there's an official committee this season. Producer Alex is working alongside Midnight and some other people in the community, like Mike, who you might know from Matchday Vlogs, and the TSP patrons submitted their ideas in the WhatsApp chat. They all went back to Midnight, who designed the TIFO that you saw today, which was James Beattie, cup in his ear. So if you want to get involved in submitting your ideas for future designs or giving some feedback on what you see on match days, just head over to Patreon. That's where you can join for free, and you can head into the WhatsApp chats and get involved in those sort of conversations as well. Also, is that the logo in the program from today?
It is, but unfortunately I've gone too early. I've actually lifted it up before I can find Jack Stevens. There you go. So Jack Stevens is there, and that is the Total Saints podcast logo, sponsored by
the program for the rest of the season.
There you go, in the match program.
Nice.
Get your programs for £8 a pop.
£4 a pop, isn't it? I think. Also, a few people have mentioned on our Facebook page. Big shout out to the volunteers who arrived at 9 o'clock this morning to sort out the TIFO as well. So it doesn't go unnoticed. That was the highlight of the day for me, to be honest. And just before we get into the Hull preview, a quick shout out for the giveaway that is currently running on our social media. That's until the end of today. Tomorrow, someone's going to be winning something from our Mush or Scummers merchandise designs. These are little ranges that we've got on the. Oh, you got the Scummers one on, Glenn?
You got the Scummers one on, yes. Indeed.
Nice. Yeah, I like that. We've also got 20% off everything on the shop for the rest of today. You just need to use the code SCUMMER when you're checking out. So head on to the website to find out more. And that's going to be a busy week on the training ground, trying to put a few things right before the trip to Hull City at the weekend. Another of the growing list of clubs who have sacked Ruben Selles. They struggled last year, Glenn, but they managed a point at the weekend. So it's nice to play a team that are below us in the league. But we've had mixed results against them in the past.
Yeah, we have. But Hull have been on a mission to self-destruct, haven't they, ever since they sacked Liam Rosenior. And if you think back to the team they had when we played in the Championship last time with Liam Delap and Fabio Carvalho, and it was the other one,
Eugene.
Yeah. Was it Alfie Jones, our ex-player as well? Yeah. So they had a decent side then, and they finished just below the playoffs, didn't they? So decided that wasn't enough. Sacked Liam Rosenior, and then were touched by the magic of Ruben Selles. And it's just extraordinary. Be interested to see what his agent comes up with next. He'll probably get the Man United, the Man United job.
Rangers,
or Rangers, of course. Rangers will be available shortly, I would imagine. So touched by the magic. So I looked through their squad, and the only player I could find was Ollie McBurney, who is an arsehole, as we well know, but he's a handful. So he's he had a fight with Lianco, didn't he? Shame he didn't knock him out, actually. But so Ollie McBurney up front. They got a couple of ex-Sheffield United players in midfield who I remember, Lundstram and Egan. I think Egan might be a defender, actually. But so they've got a few players who are decent at Championship level. But it's certainly a game that we've got to go in and win. No question. I think Watford, we knew it would be, they had the potential to be a difficult opponent, but Hull, we should definitely go there and win. I mean, I'm looking at their results. They beat Oxford this season. That's it. So that was
only 3-2 as well, I think.
Yeah.
Was that like a 94th minute winner?
Yeah, Ollie McBurney, last minute winner.
Ollie McBurney, great. So so we got to go for this game, and this has to be a game where we come away with 3 points, especially after today, where we obviously didn't do that. So it has to start soon, and it has to start next week, really.
Do you think we stick with the same side, Alfie? He's not going to. On paper, you look at the game against Portsmouth. I would say, that's probably our strongest 11. So do you think we stick with it and give them another go?
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you this at some point, anyone on the panel, because I don't actually know the answer to that question. But for me, that's the best 11 on paper, or it certainly feels like it is right now with where players are at. So I think I would go again with the same team, and just have to try and beat some different principles into them, I guess.
We've just got to start better.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But they've been poor this season, Hull, and Ipswich obviously have had a just as difficult start as us in the league, and they got to play against a poor team last weekend. Obviously, I think it was Sheffield United, wasn't it? And
Friday
obviously
night,
smashed Friday night, and they smashed them 5-0, whatever it was. So I don't necessarily think we're going to do that, but we need that sort of moment. We need that sort of team that we can just pick apart and get a few goals, and it has to be now. We haven't got time to waste anymore, have we, really? So yeah.
It is remarkable, Steve, when you look, last time we played them, I think it was February last year, wasn't it? Joe Aribo scoring the consolation goal. We lost it. It's quite remarkable how far they've fallen, considering they were
brilliant that night. They were really, really good. Like the pressing and the way that they were able to attack against us. I mean, in hindsight, you look back, 60 goals conceded in the Championship season. Of course, teams are going to like attacking against you, but no, they were probably the most impressive team at St Mary's 2 years ago, and yet they missed out on the playoffs. Just funny how things happen, isn't it? That you think you're kind of on the right track, and that actually the manager is the problem. And then you end up needing a result at Fratton Park on the final day to stay up. It's been complete sort of fall from grace and capitulation from Hull, really. I mean, they've obviously lost a handful of players who they had that season and weren't then available to them. Obviously, Philogene, who was the lad, Carvalho, who's now at Brentford, of course. You lose talented players like that and don't really replace them properly. you eventually come a cropper, and for them it's happened pretty quickly.
And thinking about our side, Glenn, do you agree that was quite a strong starting 11 to against Portsmouth?
No complaints.
We'll stick with that and give them time to gel. It was a big game for people to make their debut in, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. But I mean, I would say that is our best 11 right now. I still have question marks over the centre forward. If we're going to play that way and get down the wings and cross the ball, then you're limiting yourself. If you've got a 5'7" centre forward, it's just logic.
So do you chuck Ross Stewart in then? Do we give him another go?
I would have said so, but he's been pretty useless when he's stepped on the pitch. When you come on as a substitute, it's all very well, saying, "Oh, we hadn't had enough time," but you've got to do something. I think I said during the Premier League season, they never have enough time to do anything good, but they always have enough time to show me their crap. And it's just you've got to do something. Your minutes on the pitch are what you're aiming at all week, or for 2 weeks in this case. So when you're on there, you've got to make something happen. Even if you just clatter into someone and get booked, you've got to make something happen. You can't just exist. So, Ross Stewart, whether he's struggling physically because obviously he's had all his injuries and stuff like that, he needs to do more. I mean, there's a case for starting Adam Armstrong again, which is not something that I particularly, want to see. But we are
in place of Cameron Archer.
Well, I think I don't know. I really don't know. It's just not working up front. But is it the forwards problem, or is it the central midfield's problem with the lack of ball progression and stuff like that? Are we getting the ball? Would it matter who plays up front the way we're kind of playing at the moment? So, I mean, Casper Yander could. I don't think he's not ready to come in yet and start games, but maybe he'll get a bit more time at the end of the game if the lack of progression from midfield is still a problem. I don't know. But
Robinson as well, I thought was unlucky. That's the only he was unlucky not to.
Yeah, Robinson was a bit unfortunate, but Fellows was always going to start because he's used to the league. We've paid a lot of money for him, and Fraser is rapidly making himself undroppable. You could make an argument that he's been our best player in every game this season. So he has to play. So Robinson, he has to be an impact sub. He has to be the player that comes on with 20 minutes to go and stretches teams and make things happen. So to cut a long story short, I think we're going to go with the same team. Barring someone picking up a knock or whatever, and that should be enough to beat Hull. But as well as the win, I want to see a performance. I want to see. I want to see us creating chances, looking like we've got a plan, and obviously being defensively solid, which is, as you say, is the one good thing that came out of today.
And I kind of feel it all needs to. Middlesbrough's just around the corner, isn't it? I feel it kind of needs to click before we get to that game, because you don't want to go into that game thinking this is, it needs to click here, because that's not going to be an easy one.
Well, the next sort of 2 weeks on the road, I think we said in the podcast last week, are pretty torturous. I mean, they've got. You mentioned the Middlesbrough fixture at home, but surrounding that, obviously, we've got Hull away, Liverpool away midweek in the Cup, Middlesbrough at home are a good team, and then Sheffield United away, who will have Chris Wilder back in charge 3 days after that as well. So, within 10 days, we go to Hull, Liverpool, and Sheffield United, and play Middlesbrough at home. So everyone's going to get a chance. Isn't it? Yeah, Derby's then obviously the weekend after. Everyone's going to get a chance. It's just really interesting. I mean, what were we doing at Watford in that first half that was so good that we can't do again? Because I felt like that was the first half of that Watford game was the performance, and that was with Cameron Archer up front. That was with Finn Azaz.
It was the pace of everything. That was the thing that we were running at them, and obviously Robinson and Fraser were both playing in slightly deeper roles, weren't they? Because of the enforced late change, which meant that our players that are good at dribbling, i.e. Robinson and Fraser from that 11, were picking the ball up deep and running through gaps in the midfield. That was what kind of happened there, and they obviously made changes in the second half, which put a blocker on those.
Well, look, maybe it's not conducive to building a system and a shape which is going to play every single game. But in a game like Hull away, can you actually just play Shay Charles as a single operator at the base of the midfield and play 2 ahead of him? Play Ryan Fraser in a central position ahead of him with Finn Azaz, and play Robertson on the wing, and play Adam Armstrong on the wing, Fellows on the right.
Yeah.
Can you do that? Can you find a way to slightly more replicate that Watford shape and still keep the 4 at the back? Because look, we're probably overreacting a little bit, let's be honest, because we've got a very good squad. But I struggle to see how they're going to play the way that Wilster wants to play with the players they've got at the moment, which 14 days after the window shut isn't really a sentence I wanted to be saying.
No, I just think they've got to find a way for Downs and Charles to coexist, and they need to start dominating games, because you don't get, Joe Tessam was on the Going Home with Adam and Joe thing, and he was talking about the fact that Pompey's 2 midfielders probably outplayed them in the first half, and that just shouldn't happen. No, so those 2 have got to pull their finger out. And as I said, they did all right defensively with the work they did in front of the 2 central defenders, which probably contributed a lot to the clean sheet. Picking up the second balls off of Bishop and things like that. But they need to do more with the ball going forward, look to pass it forward more. And that's the area of the game that I feel that the central midfielders need to improve. Get the ball into Azaz. Let him be creative. Don't expect him to fight for things. Let's give him the ball where he needs the ball. And and try and flood Fellows with the ball, because even in that first half today, which was dreadful, the few times we got the ball out wide, we carved through them and created opportunities, but we just didn't do it enough.
It's going to come. Let's do score predictions. I have to say, hats off to Robert Atkins and Simon Richards, who both correctly predicted 0-0 for the Portsmouth game. So they get 3 points each. And in case you're wondering, it's been over 100 years since there was a goalless draw in the South Coast Derby. 101 years. So I think either they just forgot to put them in, or they just stumbled across the keyboard, or something. I don't know. But congratulations to them. 13 others went for a draw, so they get themselves a point. If you want to play along, all you need is your Patreon login. You'll find the leaderboard and how to play on the website. So head to totalsaints.co.uk for all of that. It won't be any of these scores because we always get it wrong. Glenn, do you want to go first?
Still on 0 points on the prediction league, so doing really well.
Go for a draw.
Who predicts? Fair play for getting it right, but 0-0. How pessimistic are you, for God's sake? Anyway, what are we talking about? Hull away. It's all going to work. 3-0.
Goals. Alfie?
Yeah, on the similar lines, Hull have conceded, I think it's 12 goals in their last 5 games in all competitions. So, there is opportunity there to score. I'll go for a 3-1 win.
Okay. Can I get the 2-1 in? Bearing in mind the last time we played them twice in the season, both games finished 2-1. So I'll go 2-1. Steve?
I'm going to go for the rarest of things and back-to-back clean sheets. I think ultimately we will get the job done because Hull are really, really not good. So 2-0.
2-0. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I said 12 goals. It's actually 14 goals in 5 games they've conceded. Sorry.
Okay. Well, don't forget, if you want to play along, as I say, get your Patreon login and then head over to the website and you can stick your prediction in there. Last week when we talked about the women's team, Steve, they got off to an absolute flyer with that game against Ipswich. You said the Crystal Palace game this weekend will be more of a test in the WSL2, and a point away for all, the final score. So positive start and a team that's scoring some goals, which is nice.
8 goals in 2 games. When I think what was their end total for the season? 19, 20? Wasn't many at all.
Different goal scorers as well, I think, today, wasn't it? One of them a penalty, but
good to share the goals around. But 8 goals in your first 2 games, when on paper that both those games looked pretty tricky. And they've swatted Ipswich aside with relative ease. Palace game, they obviously romped to the title 2 years ago. Didn't really make a fist of it last season because the top scorer missed the whole year with an ACL. So they were always a little bit handicapped last season, unfortunately. And you you need kind of all your big players to be available for the whole season if you're gonna have any chance of staying up in that division. So yeah, Palace always going to be a tough assignment, and yeah, I think you take 4 points from your first 2 games. I think there's only one side with a 100% record. So 2 points. So
we're second, right?
Off the top. Yeah, not too bad. Yeah.
Happy days. Anything else before we finish? Can I hear a police siren somewhere?
Yeah, sorry, that's in the background of mine. Pompey fans left over, I think. Stewards.
So the rest of the day coming up. Right, I think
I don't think there's anything else, is there? Yeah.
No, I think considering it was a 0-0 draw and we're playing Hull, I think we've done all right actually to
get the viewers in that one.
I suppose one thing I could say is the under-21s are playing at St Mary's on Friday night.
Oh, that doesn't happen very often at the moment.
No, so and obviously if you're not going up to Hull and you fancy a bit of fixer football, maybe give that a shot.
Right, nice one. Thank you. Don't forget, you can follow Total Saints Podcast on all the social media platforms. It's at Total Saints Pod. If you check out the merch store as well, shop.totalsaints.co.uk. Don't forget, we've got that discount until the end of today if you use the code SCUMMERS. I also mentioned earlier we're on Patreon. That's where you can support the podcast with your monthly contribution. Just head to patreon.com/Total Saints Podcast. And each of the tiers comes with different perks, including some shout outs to patrons in our Francis Benali and our Mick Shannon tier. So thank you to Dave Melton, Andy Hollis, Anthony Thompson, Gavin Ford, James Harron, Nicky Nicholson, Peter Montalabro, Southampton NY, Drew Dyer, James Kibbe, Red 76 Tax, Michael Blackmer, and David Mansell. They're all in our Francis Benali tier. And also a huge thank you to Nick Reed, Dave Ernsberger, Nick Hingston, Phil Cook, Jonathan Cooper, Colt Baker, Anthony Thompson, Matt Hall, Mike Etheridge, Phil Horstrup, Mark Littlewood, James Bobin, John Bevan, Frank Thorpe, Jono, and Andy. They're all in our Mick Shannon tier. And a huge thank you as well to Paul Castle Associates and Steamtown Brewery for sponsoring TSP this season. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Alfie. Thank you, Glenn. Thank you for watching and listening. And we will see you again next time.